Baltimore remains on pace for fewer than 300 homicides this year.
Our strategy has been focused. It's been aggressive.
Next at 4, the U.S. Attorney for Maryland highlights the importance of his partnership with the feds and how his strategies are impacting the crime fight. The Brewers Hill community on edge after a rash of brazen burglaries, the frustrations from residents, and what they're demanding from city leaders.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
Safe streets, a sinking ship, all right? Miss Jackson jumped off, the mayor is holding on, and now Life Bridge, they better get a lifeboat.
Okay.
Because Mr. Barron is coming. The feds are coming.
Fox 45 News continues to follow the controversy surrounding Baltimore's flagship gun violence intervention program. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. We are learning new information about the FBI's search warrant at the Bel Air Edison Safe Streets location in October.
And today, we now know the name of the second employee who had federal agents show up at his home. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost is live in studio with us today. Mackenzie, give us those details.
Yeah, Mary Kai, Lamont Crooks is the former Safe Streets worker who also had the FBI show up when search warrants were being executed. Crooks is the same man we reported on yesterday. We confirmed his employment at the Bel Air Edison site through public records we obtained. And he's the same guy who was involved in the federal investigation from 2010. That's when investigators called him the BGF supply for heroin. Just this afternoon, we got an updated statement from LifeBridge Health confirming Crooks no longer works for Safe Streets. LifeBridge says his departure is not related to the current investigation. According to LifeBridge, quote, the FBI went to Mr. Crooks' home to retrieve property that was the subject of the original search warrant. The property was returned to LifeBridge Health within 2 business days. Now, LifeBridge says when they took over the location in 2022, they believed all employees had been screened and vetted already. Prior to LifeBridge overseeing the location, it was managed by Living Classrooms. We're awaiting responses to our questions to Living Classrooms at this point about Mr. Crooks.
And Mackenzie, you questioned Mayor Brandon Scott today about this vetting process. What is he saying? What's his reaction?
Yeah, there are a lot of questions about how someone's affiliation or potential affiliation with a gang could be hired at the Safe Streets program. And earlier today, we pressed Mayor Scott about that issue. How does possible or confirmed gang affiliation factor into the screening process when employees are being screened for hiring?
Well, thank you for the question, Mackenzie. I won't go into details about the current case for obvious reasons, but what I will say is that working with our partners, working with law enforcement, there is a process for screening, and that process is going to consistently be updated as it has been over time.
So does gang affiliation factor into that screening process?
There's a screening process with law enforcement that considers whether someone should be hired or not.
So not a clear yes or no answer there from the mayor about that. But so far right now, it's not clear if someone had previous ties to a known gang would be excluded from working at the violence interruption program. But given this current federal probe that we're seeing and the history of at least one other Safe Streets employee, it begs the question of how many others are out there. Are you aware of anyone who is currently employed by the Safe Streets program or was previously employed that had affiliations with gangs?
No. Anybody that we're aware of that we find out of those kind of things, whether they work at Safe Streets, whether they work at WBFF, they will hear from the Baltimore Police Department.
Now, I also followed up with the mayor's office asking if hiring Mr. Crooks to work at Safe Streets, given his background, was a mistake. I actually just got a response. Here's part of it. The mayor's office says, quote, like LifeBridge, the mayor's office and Mr. Crooks was hired prior to this administration and the creation of Monzi. We take any allegation of wrongdoing or active affiliation with group violence extremely seriously. Now, the statement goes on to echo what the mayor has already said, that anyone involved in any crime will be held accountable. Obviously, there are still a lot of questions surrounding this program, and we'll keep you all updated as we continue to learn more. Mary and Kai.
Mackenzie, thank you. And this isn't the first time Fox 45 News has found Safe Streets workers accused and convicted of crimes. Ronald Alexander was convicted of distributing drugs in the communities he was tasked with protecting. Police say he tried to use his status as a Safe Streets worker to hide his drug dealing. In the Brooklyn office last year, Vernon Harper was federally indicted for possessing fentanyl with intent to distribute. He was convicted and sentenced to 18 months in prison.
There is also the case involving Damon Scroggins' murder. Safe Streets worker Ronald Brady was accused of killing Scroggins in September 2019. That case went to trial in 2022 but ended in a hung jury. Now, Brady was ultimately acquitted back in March, but Scroggins' family is highly critical of that Safe Streets program.
My belief is that our city government is financing a criminal enterprise. I believe that within my heart. Our city government is so invested in it that it's turning a blind eye to what it really is.
Fox 45 News has been investigating the Safe Streets program for years, working to find out how the program makes sure the ex-convicts working for it don't continue to commit crime and how those employees are hired. Our commitment to you is to continue to demand answers on how Safe Streets operates and how it spends taxpayer dollars. You can find all of our past reporting right now on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Sounding the alarm on an uptick in juvenile crime. Baltimore City residents are demanding lawmakers take action this upcoming session.
The Brewers Hill Neighborhood Association sending a letter to their local representative expressing concern and calls for change.
Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor spoke with those residents and is pressing lawmakers for answers. Rebecca?
Mary and Kai, it's one of Baltimore's safest neighborhoods. It's right next to Canton and it's close to the waterfront. Residents here in Brewers Hill telling me that this area used to be relatively crime-free, besides a few package thefts and small minor crimes such as that. However, they say all of that changed within just the last year, right around the time that the new Juvenile Justice Reform Act went into effect. Take a listen to what they have to say.
We've had an assault that's actually taken place right up along Fagley Street. We had some individuals that stole some vehicles, and we've had vehicles broken into. But we normally don't have those type of activities here in the neighborhood. I mean.
Today, I spoke with Brewers Hill Neighbors Association President Brant Fisher. Fed up with an alleged uptick in juvenile crime, last month the group sent a letter to Delegate Luke Clippinger demanding tangible changes to the juvenile justice system. Some of those changes that they're calling for include transparency around the juvenile home monitoring system and changes to restrictions on police interrogations of juveniles. Those suggestions, they may sound familiar. As we've been reporting for months now, police and prosecutors have also been making those calls for change.
There's nothing the law will allow us to do to hold them accountable, and they're doing whatever they want.
They come in, we can't detain them. They're back in the community the next day. They get picked up for the second one, can't detain them. They're back in the community again the next day. They pick up a third, they're back in the community again the next day.
Still to come, I pressed Delegate Luke Clippinger about how he plans to address those calls for change. Specifically, what new legislation will he be introducing this upcoming session? Hear his response in our full story coming up tonight at 5. But for now, reporting live from Brewers Hill, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. And as Rebecca mentioned, we have heard from more than a dozen prosecutors representing about 80% of the state's population who say the state's juvenile crime laws are leaving their hands tied. We've also heard from parents who are frustrated with the lack of consequences, even for their own children.
The mayor, the governor, they need to open up their eyes and see what the problem is and stop talking and fix it.
Well, they are taking issue with two laws. One prevents kids 13 and younger from facing charges for nonviolent crime. The other states that police can't question any child as a suspect or witness without notifying parents, as well as getting approval from an attorney.
Maryland Senate President Bill Ferguson is holding a town hall next week to address juvenile crime and public safety across the city. The 3 state delegates who represent South and East Baltimore will be on this panel, along with DJS Secretary Vincent Schiraldi. Now, Schiraldi is facing some criticism over his views on juvenile crime. He believes young people shouldn't be exposed to the adult prison system until they turn 25. Some former lawmakers and police leaders are pushing back, saying those policies will make Maryland less safe.
You're basically saying up until the age of 25, which is what he wants to do, you get a free ride.
Unfortunately, legislators, lawmakers, have decided that it's better to support the lawbreakers rather than those who are enforcing the law.
Schiraldi also supports ending probation and parole for offenders of any age. Governor Wes Moore stands by the work of DJS, calling Schiraldi a reformer.
FOX45 News invites you to join us for a Your Voice, Your Future public safety town hall. Councilman Eric Costello and candidate for Mayor Sheila Dixon will be on our panel. It takes place Wednesday, December 20th at 7 p.m. at Leadenhall Baptist Church.
House Speaker Adrian Jones and Senate President Bill Ferguson are two of the most powerful lawmakers in Annapolis. If you feel you're not being heard, contact them. We have their phone numbers, email addresses right there on your screen.
And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you trust Bill Ferguson and Adrian Jones to protect your family? The poll just opened. You can head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
Right now, homicides and non-fatal shootings are down across the city. And for the first time in years, Baltimore may finish 2023 with less than 300 homicides. Alexa Ashwell sat down with the U.S. Attorney for the District of Maryland for a look inside his crime-fighting strategy.
Maryland's U.S. Attorney Eric Barron believes the reduction in homicides and non-fatal shootings across Baltimore is due to the work and partnerships between federal, state, and local agencies. I asked specifically how his strategy has impacted the crime fight.
Well, our strategy has been focused. It's been aggressive. We're all on the same page. We meet regularly, formally and informally. We're communicating seamlessly. We're all working together up and down the line, all across the chain, from local, state, federal law enforcement agencies. And so when you do that, you're going to succeed. So, it starts with accountability.
Nearly a year and a half ago, Barron announced new actions his office would be taking to address the violence. This included adding prosecutors, investigators, and analysts to his office, reviewing firearms cases for violations of federal statutes, and investigating repeat violent offenders and taking them off the streets by, quote, any means necessary, such as fraud. Barron calling this an Al Capone prosecution style. I asked if he believes this, in fact, has benefited the city.
I hope so. The question is it sustainable? We got to, keep working as a team. Like I said, Lamar Jackson doesn't do it alone, right? He has 10 other players on the field with him.
Barron says his office has also incorporated prevention and intervention. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Residents impacted by a massive sinkhole last July again coming out today looking for justice. After months of battling for compensation, the city has made offers to some of the people who filed lawsuits after losing their homes. But in a news conference today, residents said the dollar amount is less than half of what some of the properties were appraised for. More than a year ago, a 115-year-old storm drain crumbled beneath the ground, causing a massive sinkhole, forcing demolition to an entire row of homes. Months after the incident, the city refused to hand over the information about what caused the collapse. But after a Fox 45 News investigation, we found the century-old storm drain was not inspected in over 2 decades at the time it had crumbled. Now residents are feeling abandoned, calling on the city to be held accountable before something like this happens again.
This is not something that doesn't happen every single day. I understand that. But it happened, and it can happen again. And if they said that they inspected those pipes last year, which we know they didn't, imagine how many other pipes and infrastructure underneath the ground that is the same exact way. It's like a ticking time bomb underneath the ground, and it's just waiting for it to be exploded.
Well, today on Fox 45 Morning News, we spoke to longtime Baltimore resident Pastor P.M. Smith about the city's response to the sinkhole. He says the residents impacted deserve more from the city.
Number one, the city caused the loss of the home. Mr. Bell is paying a mortgage for 18 months. He's renting property for 18 months. His appraisal was $312. The city's appraisal was $190, and you offer me $90? They're stealing my property. So what he needs to say and what we need to say to the city is stop thief.
Fox 45 News has been covering this incident since it first broke. You can find all of our previous reporting right now on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Still ahead tonight, Israeli forces take drastic measures to get to Hamas. Why families of hostages say the new tactic is the wrong move.
I'm Kayla Gaskins on Capitol Hill. Coming up, Republican lawmakers react to Hunter Biden skipping out on his subpoena. And tomorrow, we're looking at temperatures again in the upper 40s. But notice for the weekend, we're talking the 50s and a nice warm up. I'll let you know how long we stay in the 50s and when to expect rain in my Weather Authority forecast.
Hunter Biden skipped out on complying with the congressional subpoena this morning, but he did make an appearance on Capitol Hill. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins reports.
Good morning.
In a moment of defiance, the president's son, Hunter Biden, giving a rare public statement outside the Capitol instead of complying with a subpoena issued by House Republicans.
There is no fairness or decency in what these Republicans are doing.
The president's son? His subpoena connected to the party's investigation into the Biden family's business deals.
This is an investigation about public corruption at the highest level.
Amid allegations, the Bidens sold access to Joe Biden to foreign business associates while he served as VP and after he left office, but not during his presidency.
My father was not financially involved in my business.
He said that his dad wasn't involved financially in his businesses. He didn't say he wasn't involved.
Republicans requested a closed-door deposition. Hunter Biden says he'll only testify at a public hearing.
What do you get in a closed-door deposition that you would not get in an open hearing, which is what Hunter's asking for?
Hunter can plead the fifth in an open hearing. In a deposition, we actually get asked the questions. We already had our questions in front of us this morning. We were ready to go.
Meanwhile, Republicans want an impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden, which will give them the resources and legal power they say they need to get answers.
It's the next logical step.
The White House calling it a fishing expedition.
Republicans say they still plan to get Hunter Biden in a closed-door deposition. They argue passing an impeachment inquiry would help them do that.
That power could come in handy, considering Hunter Biden, the president's brother James Biden, and family business associate Rob Walker have all dodged their congressional subpoenas for now. While Democrats say Republicans have no evidence to support impeaching the president.
No one has been able to define what criminal or constitutional offense
they're looking for.
Some Republicans are confident there's enough smoke to find a fire. On Capitol Hill, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
And that brings us to our national question of the day. Do you think an impeachment inquiry into President Biden is justified? To weigh in, head to foxbaltimore.com/vote. Click on the Pulse tab.
It's been nice and sunny, but a little breezy, and so it feels cooler than those actual temperatures, but not terrible for the middle of the week. 46 for the current temperature, with plenty of sunshine over Baltimore. Notice that wind chill only coming in at 40 degrees, and we're seeing winds out of the west around 13 miles per hour, so a little bit breezy at this time, but around the state, plenty of sunshine. Temperatures are in the 40s, keeping us close to average for this time of year, but overnight, of course, it gets cold. We'll wake up to temperatures in the 20s and the 30s, many of us starting off below freezing, so you will want to give your car some extra time to heat up in the morning. Then by the afternoon, we're back to the upper 40s, 47 for the high, and then after that, we're getting ready for a nice warm-up for the weekend. 56 on Friday and again on Saturday. Then as we head into Sunday, we'll get ready for the next weather maker. We stay dry over the next couple days. We had a cold front move over our state earlier. No rain associated with that. Now we have high pressure dominating our pattern, and that'll keep us dry, providing plenty of sunshine over the next couple days. So you'll notice on the future scan, as we continue into the overnight hours, we'll have nice and clear skies. Then as we make our way into Thursday afternoon, it looks great, plenty of sunshine. We'll continue to deal with nice and quiet skies on Friday. And it's not until Saturday when we'll have our next chance for more clouds moving in. And then as the high pressure system departs, we get ready for showers on Sunday, all part of our latest weather maker. Showers will continue overnight and into Monday. So if you do have any plans late this weekend or even on Monday, you will want the rain gear. We're talking scattered showers on both days, and then we'll stay mostly dry as we head into Tuesday behind that weather maker. So temperatures 47 tomorrow, then 56 on Friday. We stay in the 50s over the weekend and through Monday, 40s after that. Back to you.
Jasmine, thank you. Coming up after the break, families of hostages being held by Hamas taking their concerns to the White House.
A group of lawmakers warning about the economic fallout of a U.S.-China conflict. I'm Atrel Nashar with what they say needs to change to protect the U.S. from a worst-case scenario.
In Congress, the Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party is out with a new report warning the U.S. economy is unprepared for a potential conflict with China. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar explains their findings and what they say needs to be done to avoid a worst-case scenario.
U.S.-China relations are at a low point. Tensions flared over spy balloons and China's close ties to Russia. In the minds of U.S. officials, a dreaded escalation would be China invading Taiwan, which could potentially drag U.S. forces into a conflict with China. The Washington Post reports the Chinese military is bolstering its cyber efforts to attack key American infrastructure in the event of a conflict. It coincides with the release of a new report from the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party that says the United States lacks a contingency plan for the economic and financial impacts of conflict with the People's Republic of China.
The inescapable economic reality is that the United States remains dangerously dependent on the CCP.
For things like semiconductors and rare earth minerals, the committee says, putting forth 150 recommendations to fortify America's economy and put it in a position to outcompete China. Calling for a reset of the U.S.-China trade relationship to crack down on unfair practices, restrict the flow of U.S. investment and technology that fuels China's military modernization and human rights abuses, and make sure the U.S. leads the world in tech advances like artificial intelligence.
If we don't get back where we are a world power and where we can build and make things over here, China is going to rub our nose in the dirt.
All of this comes with risk. For example, American farmers could be the target of Chinese retaliation if the U.S. were to change its normalized trade status or hit China with new tariffs. One model by Oxford Economics shows a scenario like that could cost the U.S. economy almost $2 trillion over 5 years and eliminate more than 800,000 jobs. Many of the committee's recommendations are aimed at Congress, but there is a role for the private sector, too. They'd like to see American banks undergo stress tests by the Federal Reserve to see how they'd hold up if they were ever suddenly cut off from the Chinese market. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar.
Israel's military is reportedly pumping seawater into Hamas tunnels underneath Gaza, despite the fact that hostages could be in those tunnels. It is part of an effort to destroy the infrastructure that's allowing the group to conduct operations. But families of the hostages still being held say they are worried flooding the tunnels will kill their loved ones. President Biden sounded uncertain on the issue at a press conference yesterday.
There is assertions being made that they're quite sure there are no hostages in any of these tunnels, but I don't know that for a fact.
Israel's defense forces declined to comment on the tunnels, saying those are classified operations. Now, family members of Israeli Americans who are still being held hostage by Hamas in Gaza say they see the Biden administration's efforts to get them home.
We felt before, and we were only reinforced in seeing and believing that we could have no better friend in Washington or in the White House than President Biden himself and his administration.
Well, that's Jonathan Deckel-Chen, whose son is believed to be held hostage. He and several other hostage family members met with President Biden at the White House today. It was the first face-to-face meeting between the families and President Biden. They declined to reveal details from the meeting. The U.S. says 8 Americans are still unaccounted for since the terrorist attacks on Israel. Coming up after the break, oversight of the Baltimore County Inspector General still up for debate. What we're learning as concerned citizens have their say. Plus, traffic backed up for blocks with neighbors placing blame on bike lanes. We have their demands to the city.
The Federal Reserve is leaving interest rates unchanged. The central bank anticipates 3 rate cuts next year. This as traders anticipate the first cut to happen in the middle of next year. Talk of pivoting away from a more restrictive policy comes as prices continue to trend downwards.
Local economist Dr. Anirban Basu is joining us live tonight to weigh in on all of this news. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Mary and Kai. Thanks.
What will this latest move mean for consumers who are looking to make some big purchases like a house or a car? It's not great news for them right now.
It's not a great circumstance for them right now, but what today's news tells us is it's going to get better for them. Borrowing costs are about to fall quite meaningfully in 2024. And as Kai pointed out, the Federal Reserve is poised to cut interest rates 3 times next year and then 4 times in 2025, according to their estimates. So interest rates are set to fall for the next couple of years. And so for those who are looking to buy a house or finance a vehicle purchase, times are going to get easier from the perspective of lower borrowing costs.
Dr. Basu, yesterday's inflation report is showing that core inflation inched up last month. What could that mean going forward, and what do you want our viewers to take in about this kind of statistic?
Yeah, in general, we still have rising prices. So the world is getting more expensive. Our lives are getting more expensive. But the pace at which our lives are becoming more expensive is falling. And it's falling into a range more acceptable to the Federal Reserve, our monetary policymakers, which makes it more likely that 2 things are going to happen. One, the trend is suggesting further declines in inflation towards 2%. Indeed, the Federal Reserve's projection is that by 2025, we'll be at roughly 2% inflation, and the Federal Reserve is poised to continue to reduce interest rates, to make credit conditions a bit easier for us all. And anyone who wants the economy to keep growing, well, for those folks, today was a very good day.
So your outlook for 2024, I think, is probably pretty positive, is it?
No.
Oh, no.
You know, it's a complicated situation. I will say this. You know, I tend to be more pessimistic than most economists. But I have to say that the news so far this year, for much of this year, has been better than I anticipated. The economy's continued to grow. Consumers have kept spending. Employers have kept hiring. And now we've gotten some really good data on inflation. And so I still think that there are some risks out there, as it turns out, whether from commercial real estate or other aspects of economic life. But generally speaking, I am becoming more optimistic than I had been based on the data we received recently and today's Federal Reserve pronouncements.
All right, so glass half empty or half full?
Dr. Basu, Mary and I will say you're pessimistically optimistic.
Or cautiously pessimistic, whatever you want to say. You're both fabulous people, so you can say whatever you'd like. But yeah, that's where I am right now.
Fair enough. Dr. Anirban Basu, thank you for joining us as always. Always, just as your company is, sage advice from you.
That's right. Thank you. Well, Fox 45 News continues to follow the debate over changes to the Baltimore County Inspector General's office. His council chair, Julian Jones, defends a series of amendments that could weaken the IG's power. These amendments were added to a bill designed to reform the IG's office at the request of a special commission.
As far as the advisory board, I don't have a large trust of government investigative bodies, whether they're at the federal level, state level, or county level.
And I've seen what almost unfettered power can give somebody and what harm can be done by having that unfettered power.
I don't think that we should have an inspector general who is limited on doing investigations.
The composition and powers that would be conferred upon that board clearly violate best practices.
Well, the council is set to formally vote on the amendments next week, but Council Chair Jones is still refusing to say what other council members initiated these controversial amendments. Meanwhile, during the hours of public comment last night, just 2 people spoke out in favor of the amendments, while many others condemned them.
I was once the target of an IG investigation, but I was fortunate that an outside agency stepped in to kill the investigation and clear my name. Additional advisory board in this day and age, to me, is something that should be certainly considered.
An oversight committee is a blatant tactic to thwart and stifle the ability to expose wrongdoing by upper-level management. My advisory board has never reviewed any of my investigations ever. They have no idea what investigations my office is doing. That is a pillar of independence.
Well, critics argue the amendments would undermine the commission's months of research. If passed, the amendments would block the IG's power to freely subpoena documents from private contractors, citizens, or companies doing business with the county. They would allow any county employee involved in an IG investigation to request reimbursement for attorney fees, and they would create an advisory board that would review and insert recommendations on all IG reports before they could be made public. Stay with Fox 45 News. Coming up at 5:30, Baltimore City Inspector General Isabel Cumming will join us live to weigh in on the proposed amendments in the county.
You know, I'm not anti-bike, but I am pro-common sense. And that's what we're talking about here.
That's former City Council President Lawrence Bell, frustrated, like many Baltimore residents, about those bike lanes going up along Gwynns Falls Parkway. Many are putting signs in their yards calling for those lanes to be removed. Fox 45's Jeff Abel has more on the headache for drivers.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. If you look at the street right now, the traffic is backed all the way back there.
For those heading west,
it's congested, it's taking forever.
Gwynns Falls Parkway.
Look, it's all the way back beyond Hanlon Park.
Is lately no way to travel.
That's 3 blocks down.
The backups began last month when the city reduced this 2-lane road to 1 lane and created this.
What is that? You know, what is that? It's ridiculous.
What the city calls a buffer lane.
This was more animus towards the community.
Residents call a bike lane. Either way, it's created a congested lane.
The flow has tremendously slowed up, backed up, and I've been sitting here, I don't know, feeling like at least 15 minutes, just stop and go.
It creates a congestion that is unnerving and unnecessary.
The city redesigned this road when it was resurfaced last month, and neighbors insist they were never consulted. They're convinced this community is the latest community targeted for bike lanes where no one is bicycling.
I've observed 2 bikes over the course of 30 days.
The new design does provide a lane of street parking, but it takes away easy access for emergency vehicles who may be racing to a crisis.
How can a fire truck, any fire truck, get through here? How can an ambulance get through here? And rather than focusing on filling potholes, fixing bridges, they're going to waste money to make it intentionally harder for people to drive because they think too many people are driving. So they're creating traffic jams.
Residents are now vowing to take their case to court, hoping to clear the congestion and erase these buffer bikeless lanes.
When you allocate and appropriate tax dollars, you must do so for the public good. And there is no evidence whatsoever that this serves the public good.
Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Northeast Baltimore residents voiced similar concerns last month after the city cut a 4-lane stretch of Harford Road into 2 lanes. They say those lanes are a safety issue for cyclists and for drivers.
It's not really safe for no bicyclists to be riding up and down this road, to be honest with you, because they got road rage up here.
How many bikes have you seen?
I haven't seen a bike around here since I've been around.
Opponents of bike lanes say the city should put the brakes on the project until further study can be done, while supporters say a lack of bike lanes creates hazards for pedestrians.
Maryland's newest school report card is out, and the news is not good for 3 of the highest performing school systems in the area. As
Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, Carroll, Howard, and Anne Arundel County schools saw steep drop-offs in the number of 5-star schools.
The state's annual school report card measures school performance based on a number of factors, including chronic absenteeism, test scores, and graduation rates. Based off those metrics and more, each school receives a star rating, from a low of 1 star to a high of 5 stars.
Baltimore City was the only district in the state to see the number of 5-star schools increase. It went from 1 to 2. Baltimore Polytechnic Institute Institute and the School for the Arts. All other districts in our area saw a drop in the number of five-star schools this year. Baltimore County had the most in our region with 19 five-star schools. But look at this. Last year, Carroll County had 12 five-star schools. This year, it's down to 1. Howard County had 28 five-star schools. Now, it's down to 12. Anne Arundel County saw an even bigger drop. Last year, Anne Arundel County also had 28 five-star schools. And this year, it's down to just 9.
Coming up tonight on Fox 45 News at 10, what the Maryland State Department of Education says could be to blame for the drop in high-performing schools. We'll also tell you what districts in our area had the most one-star schools, the lowest possible score. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
1, 2, 3, Pickleball House!
Sign me up. Trending today, the official ribbon-cutting ceremony of the Pickleball House in Middle River. The state-of-the-art facility includes 8 regulation-size indoor courts, a pro shop, locker rooms, and a lounge. Not bad for those officials. It was designed to create a welcoming atmosphere for seasoned players and those new to the game. Organizers say they plan to host regular tournaments, clinics, and social events.
Really looking to try to build this community and network within the community, kind of develop some community-based programs with the youth and senior folks within the area.
Annual memberships range from $350 for an individual to $900 for a family. The Pickleball House will be open to anybody for complimentary play until this Sunday, December 17th.
Coming up later, the Ravens still riding high right now after a big win in overtime on Sunday. Morgan Adsit looks ahead to this weekend's matchup against the Jags.
Plus, the holidays are in full swing at the Lord Baltimore Hotel, a sneak peek at something new in this year's festivities.
And we're getting ready for another cool day tomorrow, but over the weekend, we return to the 50s. I'll let you know how long we stay in the 50s and when you can expect rain in my full forecast.
The holidays are right around the corner, and local attractions are getting into the holiday spirit with extravagant decorations. Today on Fox 45 Morning News, Be More lifestyle host Mark Clark took a trip to the Lord Baltimore Hotel.
That's right. It's always great to be at the Lord Baltimore. Yes, and with Lee, the well-dressed Lee. And Lee, this is your tree. And so tell us about this whole experience, because obviously you know what you're doing with your couture tree here.
How about it? So this is our 9th year.
Wow.
So really the designers this year really stepped up the game. I mean, when you look around, you can see some amazing work. This particular piece, though, I was inspired by my visit to Longwood Gardens.
Nice.
They had an all roses couture tree last year, and I kind of took that imagination and reimagined it into what I came up with here. But we've got some amazing work outside of this piece, of course. Over here, we have this designer, April House, she designed it based off of the ceiling of the lobby.
Okay,
so
wait a minute.
When you see this design,
I love it.
You can see the inspiration behind it.
Wow.
And she did just an incredible job of the technique and the design in it to really capture the ceiling.
That is so cool.
And then the last one I just want to highlight to you, this one is done by a local artist, Michael Bruley. And these are actually recycled.
Nice.
So really imagination behind it. This one is called Silver Bells. Michael Bruley did an outstanding job. So
man,
the trees are up through January 6th. It's a great time to come and get in the holiday spirit.
Yes.
There's 25 designs. Have a cocktail in LB Tavern.
Come on now.
Or a dinner, you know. You got a whole experience.
A great time, guys. It's always, you don't need an excuse to come to the Lord Baltimore, but come on and check it out. Perfect in time for the holidays. And don't forget the drinks.
Oh, we won't, Mark. Thank you. And take a look at this. Between making his list and checking it twice, Santa Claus makes a special appearance at the National Aquarium. It's part of his annual scuba dive in the Atlantic Coral Reef exhibition, bringing holiday cheer to the guests and the habitat's tropical residents. Santa Claus is joined by Mrs. Claus, his trusty reindeer, and some other scuba divers. Well, many of you are sharing just how your furry friends are getting into the holiday spirit. On the left, April sent us this picture of her cat, who couldn't wait to crawl up into the Christmas tree, as cats sometimes do. And in the middle, Lori sent us this adorable picture of Holly celebrating her birthday and Christmas. And on the right, Angela sent us this picture of Milo, enchanted by all of those lights. Hey, we'd like to see how you're celebrating the holidays this year. Scan the QR code on your screen. That will take you to our website, foxbaltimore.com, where you can upload your pictures and videos, all powered by Stackla. Jasmine, I can't wait to see what you do for Caramel as you dress Caramel up for Christmas.
Oh, absolutely. She is totally going to be dressed up. In fact, Christmas is the day we got her, so big celebration for that. We have been dealing with some cool temperatures outside, and we've got that again tomorrow, but over the weekend, finally a nice warm up. So for everyone taking the dogs outside, it looks much better later this weekend. 46 currently with nice and sunny skies. We're starting to see the sunset, and it looks great in the background of Baltimore, but it is a little breezy with winds out of the west around 13 miles per hour. And when we take that into account, the wind chill is a couple degrees lower than those actual temperatures. Mostly the 40s around the state, plenty of sunshine across most areas. Tonight we'll drop to the 20s and the 30s, and for many of us, we start off with freezing temperatures in the morning. You'll want the layers. By the afternoon, another cool day as we reach the upper 40s, staying right around average for this time of year, but we do have our next warm up, and that comes on Friday. So we're nice and dry around our area, a couple of snow showers to our north, and then we've got high pressure to our west. That high pressure system will mean plenty of sunshine through the end of this work week. And then as we head into the weekend, more clouds before the next weather maker arrives. So we'll stay nice and quiet as we head into Thursday. It looks great for the afternoon with plenty of sunshine. Then as we move forward into Friday, nice and sunny to start the day, and we'll keep those sunny skies into the afternoon. A great way to start the weekend. More clouds move in on Saturday. High pressure will depart, and as that happens, the next weather maker moves in. That's going to lead to showers on Sunday. If you do have any plans to be outside, make sure that you have the rain gear. The rain will continue off and on throughout the evening into the night, and then on Monday, more rain on the way. We'll stay mostly dry, though, on Tuesday, and then it looks good for the middle of the week. Temperatures tonight will drop to 28 with clear and cold temperatures. Then tomorrow, our highs reach 47, keeping us close to average for this time of year. But throughout the day, expect plenty of sunshine. Winds will be lighter, so the wind chill not as low. Then as we head into Friday, 56 and sunny. Then 56 again on Saturday with partly cloudy skies ahead of that next weather maker. We'll have the chance for showers on Sunday, and those mainly start in the afternoon. The rain continues off and on overnight and into Monday. 56 for the high on Monday. After that, cooler behind the weather maker. 48 on Tuesday. Then as we head into Wednesday, temperatures close to average around 48. Back to you.
Jasmine, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, Harvard's president says she's keeping her job despite the backlash over anti-Israel protest on campus. The new allegation tonight that's reigniting calls for her to resign.
Don't just age well. I'm Liz Bonus. Some common habits in people who sort of fight the process. We'll tell you about them just ahead.
A new report says 4 habits can help you stay forever young. Medical reporter Liz Bonus shares what's on that list.
Hey there, everybody. This report shows there are some common health habits, from eating well to moving more, that can fight the aging process. It's just small changes that work against the things that happen in the body, so you don't just age, you age well.
First up, they all stay social. It fights loneliness linked to aging and brain health, either with friends here at Ohio's life-enriching communities, Twin Lakes, or with their own families.
So we have our children, their spouses, and our grandchildren nearby.
Second, they all stay moving. They do some kind of activity most days of the week. This prevents muscle loss. They also take it to the next level by
being motivated to do a little more than what they're doing.
Third, nurse Shannon Fitzwater says they mix up their routine with things they enjoy doing. It helps you learn something new, which challenges your memory and adds happiness by keeping you from getting stuck in a rut.
We always say health is a state of body, but wellness is a state of being.
Finally, they do activity that keeps your heart challenged and your lungs. This helps with endurance, which keeps body and soul strong. Activity also helps with balance. One of the top things that can speed up aging is a bad fall. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
Well, in other health headlines right now, using psychedelic drugs to treat PTSD may become reality. After 30 years of clinical research, the MAPS Public Benefit Corporation is asking the FDA to review MDMA as a treatment for that disorder. MDMA is the active ingredient in street drugs like ecstasy and also Molly. It can produce experiences of emotional relatedness and also openness. The FDA has 60 days to accept or deny that review. Current PTSD treatments include antidepressants and cognitive behavioral therapy, but some say these are only somewhat effective. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, new information in Fox 45's ongoing investigation into the Safe Streets program. We press officials on one former employee's alleged gang ties. Retail crime is top of the mind for holiday shoppers, the way stores are trying to protect merchandise and you.
Multiple burglaries leaving the Brewers Hill community on edge. The crime concerns we're hearing from residents.
Another former Safe Streets employee is under investigation for alleged gang ties. Fox 45 News presses the mayor on how that program hires its workers.
Are you going to vote for the amendment? I don't think so. No, I'm not going to vote for the amendment. And don't worry about it.
Fox 45 News continues to follow the controversy over changes to the Baltimore County Inspector General's office. Coming up later, we talk with Baltimore City's IG about last night's heated debate.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
We've had an assault that's actually taken place right up along Fagley Street. We had some individuals that stole some vehicles, and we've had vehicles broken into. But we normally don't have those type of activities here in the neighborhood.
Baltimore City residents are sounding the alarm on an uptick in juvenile crime, and they're demanding lawmakers take action this upcoming legislative session. Good evening. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Thanks so much for staying with us. Today, the Brewers Hill Neighborhood Association sent a letter to their local representative expressing concern and calls for change. They say the rise in crime has them on edge.
Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor spoke with those residents and is pressing lawmakers for answers. Rebecca.
Mary and Kai, it's one of Baltimore's safest neighborhoods. It's right next to Canton and it's close to the waterfront. Brewers Hill residents telling me for the most part, this area used to be relatively crime-free. But some say all of that changed just within the last year or so, right around the time that the Juvenile Justice Reform Act took effect. Keeping a watchful eye from up above, the historic Mr. Bo sign, a renowned landmark overlooking Baltimore's Brewers Hill neighborhood.
Safety is a concern. I think for everyone, it's a concern for me and my family.
As some of the residents down below,
it's been challenging over the last year because a lot of people just don't have that comfort level.
Now urging lawmakers to take a closer look at an uptick in juvenile crime in their community.
We've had an assault that's actually taken place right up along Fagley Street.
Just around these few blocks alone.
We had some individuals that stole some vehicles, and we've had vehicles broken into.
Brewers Hill Neighbor Association President Brent Fisher.
We normally don't have those type of activities here in the neighborhood.
Claiming young offenders are putting residents on edge and at risk. In a letter sent to Delegate Luke Clippinger, the association writing, quote, "We are deeply troubled by the surge in juvenile crime, specifically an increase in homicides, non-fatal shootings, armed carjackings, and car thefts within our district and across Baltimore." The letter going on to demand tangible changes to the juvenile justice system, including the charging process for juveniles, amendments to probation periods for cases involving illegal firearms and felony offenses, revisions around competency commitments, increased transparency around the juvenile home monitoring system, and changes to restrictions on police interrogations of juveniles.
We want to have that accountability piece.
Echoing calls and concerns also being shared by police and prosecutors.
There's nothing the law will allow us to do to hold them accountable. And they're doing whatever they want.
They come in, we can't detain them, they're back in the community the next day.
The hope with this letter and having these conversations that when the next session in January that, they can find viable solutions to right the ship and get the proper laws in place.
New laws that could have been worked out this summer during a special session. Instead, Governor Westmore refusing to call for one, waiting until next year to look into new legislation. Now, Fisher and Delegate Clippinger, they plan to sit down for a meeting sometime within the next coming weeks. I also asked Delegate Clippinger, what new legislation exactly will you be proposing in this upcoming session to help curb juvenile crime? He said any such legislation is still being drafted. This as the session for next year now less than a month away. Reporting live in Brewers Hill, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Becca, thank you. This is just the latest voice joining a growing list of people frustrated over the juvenile crime crisis. As Rebecca mentioned, we have heard from more than a dozen prosecutors representing about 80% of the state's population who say the state's juvenile crime laws leave their hands tied.
So what we're realizing when we talk to the young people is that young people, the juveniles, know there's nothing that we can do.
We can't charge them. I mean, essentially, if they are found to have committed the crime, the police just have to drive them home. I mean, that's really all we can do.
We can only hope that they'll not listen to just folks like me or my 23 colleagues across the state who are the chief prosecutors in their counties, but hopefully they'll listen to their citizens, because their citizens are saying the exact same thing. Enough's enough.
And parents are also demanding change at the state level. Some tell Fox 45 News kids believe they can get away with just about anything.
But if we're just going to look at them and say, well, they're too young to know the wrong that they've done, that is not for Baltimore. That is not for Maryland, because kids in this city, in this states, are still committing crime.
And they're teenagers. They know what they're doing. They know right from wrong. They need to start locking these kids up. They need to change the laws.
Well, they are taking issue with two specific laws. One prevents kids 13 and younger from facing charges for nonviolent crime. The other states police cannot question any child as a suspect or witness without notifying parents, as well as getting approval from an attorney.
Maryland Senate President Bill Ferguson is holding a town hall next week to address juvenile crime and public safety across the city and state. The 3 state delegates who represent South and East Baltimore will be on that panel, along with DJS Secretary Benson Schiraldi.
Schiraldi is facing some criticism over his views on juvenile crime. He believes young people shouldn't be exposed to the adult prison system until they turn 25. Some former lawmakers and police leaders pushed back, saying those policies are making Maryland less safe.
You're basically saying up until the age of 25, which is what he wants to do, you get a free ride.
Unfortunately, legislators, lawmakers, have decided that it's better to support the lawbreakers rather than those who are enforcing the law.
Schiraldi also supports ending probation and parole for offenders of any age. Governor Wes Moore stood by the work of DJS, calling Schiraldi a reformer.
And Fox 45 News invites you to join us for a Your Voice, Your Future Public Safety Town Hall. City Councilman Eric Costello and mayoral candidate Sheila Dixon will be on our panel. That takes place Wednesday, December 20th at 7 p.m. at Leadenhall Baptist Church.
House Speaker Adrian Jones and Senate President Bill Ferguson are two of the most powerful lawmakers in Annapolis right now. If you feel you're not being heard, contact them. We have their phone numbers, email addresses right there on your screen.
That brings us to our question of the day. Do you trust Bill Ferguson and Adrian Jones to protect your family? So far, 100% of those who voted say no. You can head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
Right now, homicides and non-fatal shootings are down across the city. And for the first time in years, Baltimore may finish 2023 with less than 300 homicides.
Alexa Ashwell sat down with the U.S. Attorney for the District of Maryland for a look inside of his crime-fighting strategy.
Maryland's U.S. Attorney Eric Barron believes the reduction in homicides and non-fatal shootings across Baltimore is due to the work and partnerships between federal, state, and local agencies. I asked specifically how his strategy has impacted the crime fight.
Well, our strategy has been focused. It's been aggressive. We're all on the same page. We meet regularly, formally and informally. We're communicating seamlessly. We're all working together up and down the line, all across the chain, from local, state, federal law enforcement agencies. And so when you do that, you're going to succeed. So, it starts with accountability.
Nearly a year and a half ago, Barron announced new actions his office would be taking to address the violence. This included adding prosecutors, investigators, and analysts to his office, reviewing firearms cases for violations of federal statutes, and investigating repeat violent offenders and taking them off the streets by, quote, any means necessary, such as fraud. Barron calling this an Al Capone prosecution style. I asked if he believes this, in fact, has benefited the city.
I hope so. The question is it sustainable? We got to, keep working as a team. Like I said, Lamar Jackson doesn't do it alone, right? He has 10 other players on the field with him.
Barron says his office has also incorporated prevention and intervention. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Tonight, we're learning new information about the FBI's search warrant at the Bel Air Edison Safe Streets location in October.
That's right. We now know the name of that second employee who had federal agents show up to his home. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost in studio with us today to tell us about these new details. Mackenzie?
Yeah, Mary and Kai, Lamont Crooks is the former Safe Streets worker who has also had the FBI show up when search warrants were being executed. Crooks is the same guy we reported on yesterday. We confirmed his employment at the Bel Air Edison Safe Streets site through public records that we obtained. And he's the same person who was involved in the FBI federal investigation from 2010 when investigators called him the BGF supply for heroin. Just this afternoon, we got an updated statement from LifeBridge confirming Crooks no longer works for Safe Streets. LifeBridge says his departure is not related to the current investigation. Now, according to LifeBridge, quote, the FBI went to Mr. Crooks' home to retrieve property that was the subject of the original search warrant. The property was returned to LifeBridge Health within 2 business days. Now, LifeBridge says when they took over for the location in 2022, they believed all employees had been screened and vetted already. Prior to LifeBridge overseeing this site, it was managed by Living Classrooms. We're still waiting on responses to our questions that we sent to Living Classrooms at this point about Mr. Crooks.
And Mackenzie, you questioned Mayor Brandon Scott today about that vetting process. What's the mayor saying?
Yeah, there are a lot of questions about how someone's affiliation with a gang could be hired at the Safe Streets program. We pressed the mayor about that issue earlier.
How does
possible or confirmed gang affiliation factor into the screening process when employees are being screened for hiring?
Well, thank you for the question, Mackenzie. I won't go into details about the current case for obvious reasons, but what I will say is that working with our partners, working with law enforcement, there is a process for screening, and that process is going to consistently be updated as it has been over time.
So does gang affiliation factor into that screening process?
There's a screening process with law enforcement that considers whether someone should be hired or not.
Not really a clear answer there from the mayor, yes or no. So right now it's not clear if someone had previous ties to a known gang would be excluded from working at the Safe Streets program. But given this current federal probe and the history of at least one other Safe Streets employee, it begs the question of how many others are there. Are you aware of anyone who is currently employed by the Safe Streets program or was previously employed that had affiliations with gangs?
No. Anybody that we're aware of that we find out of those kind of things, whether they work at Safe Streets, whether they work at WBFF, they will see and hear from the Baltimore Police Department.
I also followed up with the mayor's office asking if hiring Mr. Crooks to work at Safe Streets, given his background, was a mistake. And we got a response from his office this afternoon. Here's part of it. Like LifeBridge, the mayor's office says Crooks, quote, was hired prior to this administration and the creation of Monzi. We take any allegations of wrongdoing or active affiliation with group violence extremely seriously. The statement goes on to echo what the mayor has said time and time again, that anyone involved in any crime will be held accountable. Now, obviously, there are still several questions surrounding this program, and we'll keep you updated as we continue to learn more. Marian Kai?
Mackenzie, thank you. And this is far from the first time Fox 45 News has found Safe Streets workers accused and convicted of crimes. Ronald Alexander was convicted of distributing drugs in the communities where he was tasked with interventions. Investigators say he also tried to use his status as a Safe Streets worker to hide his drug dealing. Now, in the Brooklyn office last year, a federal indictment accused Vernon Harper of possessing fentanyl with the intent to distribute. He was sentenced to 18 months in prison. Then there's the case of Damon Scroggins' murder. Safe Streets worker Ronald Brady was accused of killing Scroggins in September 2019. That case went to trial in 2022, but it ended in a hung jury. Brady was ultimately acquitted back in March, but Scroggins' family is highly critical of the Safe Streets program.
My belief is that our city government is financing a criminal enterprise. I believe that within my heart. Our city government is so invested in it that it's turning a blind eye to what it really is.
Fox 45 News has been investigating the Safe Streets program for years, working to find out how the program makes sure the ex-convicts working for it don't continue to commit crime and how those employees are hired. Our commitment to you is to continue to demand answers on how Safe Streets operates and how it spends taxpayer dollars. You can find all of our past reporting right now on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, the rise in organized retail crime prompts a congressional hearing. The new legislation lawmakers say could help stop the problem.
Harvard's president says she's keeping her job despite the backlash over anti-Israel protests on campus. The new allegation tonight that's reigniting calls for her to resign.
And after a couple of cool days, we're getting ready for a warmer trend over the next 6 to 10 days. I'll let you know just how high the temperatures get coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
Fox 45 News continues our coverage on the war in the Middle East happening now. President Joe Biden says Israel is starting to lose global support over its, quote, indiscriminate bombing campaign in Gaza. Experts say Biden's comments expose the growing differences between the U.S. and Israel. Meanwhile, the UN General Assembly voted last night to demand an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, with 153 nations supporting the resolution. Officials say the ceasefire is necessary to move the massive amounts of humanitarian assistance needed by Gaza's population. Now, the resolution comes as health officials in Gaza say infectious diseases are now rapidly spreading throughout the Strip, and they can't properly be treated.
Those very health centers that we're operating in Khan Yunis have been ordered to evacuate. So we also had to stop providing support to those health centers. So the patients that we were seeing there, on top of living in just horrendous conditions, just don't have access to healthcare anymore. Half of the patients that we were seeing there were children under the age of 5. So it's all those children who are still living in those conditions, facing multiple evacuation orders in the south, and now just do not have access to healthcare on top of it.
And happening nationally, the president of Harvard University has been under fire since her congressional testimony about anti-Semitism last week. But new accusations about her past work are giving critics more fodder to say she needs to go. Sinclair's chief political correspondent Scott Thuman has the story.
Chairwoman Fox.
Harvard President Claudine Gay was thrust into the spotlight last week after she and 2 other major university presidents balked at questions about how anti-Semitism is handled on their campuses.
So the answer is yes, that calling for the genocide of Jews violates Harvard Code of Conduct, correct?
Again, it depends on the context.
It does not depend on the context. The answer is yes, and this is why you should resign.
Lawmakers, alumni, and scholars called for Gay to step down after her remarks. Now she's in even more hot water over her academic work. Researchers Chris Rufo and Chris Brunette allege Gay plagiarized sections of her PhD dissertation. One of the scholars Gay is accused of plagiarizing is Dr. Carol Swain, a longtime professor of law and political science at Vanderbilt University.
The harm to me wasn't just 2 passages that she lifted from my prize-winning book. I believe it extends to the fact that her whole research program seems to have been derivative of my prize-winning book.
Gay declined to be interviewed for this story, but told the Boston Globe Monday, "I stand by the integrity of my scholarship." Despite that claim, the governing body of Harvard said Tuesday Gay will ask for corrections to some of her academic writings where there was, quote, inadequate citation. But for Dr. Swain, that may not be enough.
If Claudine Gay was a white male or female, or even a Black conservative, they would have been fired by now. And so the penalty normally for plagiarism at that level is that you lose your position, but most people would resign.
Harvard said Tuesday it's standing by Gay, but UPenn President Liz McGill, who made similar comments to Congress last week, announced her resignation Saturday. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
Yesterday, Fox 45 News and our parent company, Sinclair Broadcast Group, asked viewers across the nation, do you think Harvard's president should be terminated over her handling of anti-Semitic protests on campus? People in more than 70 U.S. cities answered that poll, and 87% said yes.
It has been a pretty quiet day, but temperatures on the cooler side. And now those numbers at 41 degrees. Our wind chill coming in at 38 with winds out of the west-southwest. Not as breezy as was earlier, but still very chilly. We're seeing the 40s across the state, mostly clear around Maryland. But overnight, expect temperatures falling to the 20s and the low 30s. Most of us will be waking up to temperatures below freezing, so make sure that you are prepared and you have the layers. By the afternoon, pretty similar in terms of temperatures. We're looking at the 40s, staying close to average. We'll have plenty of sunshine throughout the day, but we have a warm-up that's on the way, and that starts on Friday. We're nice and quiet around our area. We have some snow showers to the north staying away from us. We're also keeping track of this high pressure system that will keep us dry, and it'll mean nice and sunny skies over the next couple days, all ahead of our next weather maker. So you'll notice that we do stay nice and quiet overnight with clear skies. Then tomorrow we're looking at plenty of sunshine by the afternoon, and we'll keep the clear conditions into Friday morning. The afternoon looks great, lots of sunshine. And then for Saturday, we start to see some more clouds, and that's all ahead of the latest weather maker. High pressures will depart, and after that, showers begin to move in for Sunday. So this is when we expect the next weather maker. Showers continue off and on throughout the afternoon and evening. We'll have more showers overnight and on Monday. So we're talking scattered showers. There's a better chance for rain on Monday, and then we stay mostly dry on Tuesday and again on Wednesday. Our temperatures tonight fall to 28. It'll be a cold one. Then tomorrow, highs around 47 with plenty of sunshine. Not quite as breezy as it was today, but get ready for the nice warm up for the weekend. 56 on Friday with sunny skies. 56 and partly cloudy on Saturday. Staying in the mid-50s on Sunday. Again, we have that chance for showers, mainly starting during the second half of the day. Expect scattered showers on Monday with highs around 56. And this is followed by cooler temperatures. Tuesday, we're looking at 48. Same thing on Wednesday, keeping us close to average for this time of year. Back to you.
Jasmine, thank you. 'Tis the season for online shopping scams. The warning signs one FBI agent says can help you avoid becoming a victim.
A surprise came our way while watching the Ravens' first practice for this Sunday night at Jacksonville. Not only were they full strength at practice, that included safety Kyle Hamilton. Hamilton wearing a knee brace on his left knee after exiting early with that injury Sunday. He is considered day-to-day by head coach John Harbaugh. Hamilton did warm-ups, then went over to team trainers. He's not full speed yet, but even seeing him this soon is promising.
I thought he moved pretty good. I was pretty happy to see it. He wasn't a full participant. He was out there for most of the practice, did as much as he could, and we'll see how he progresses as the week goes on.
Still unsure. Up in the air. Went out there today. Felt pretty good. So go from there. Whenever you have like a knee injury, it's a little weird. I try to stay as positive as possible, and I mean, lucky for me is that it wasn't as bad as it could have been.
To the offensive side of the ball, they had a new player, quarterback Malik Cunningham. The teammate of Lamar Jackson at Louisville was brought to the Ravens roster with an open spot because wide receiver Devin Duvernay has been placed on the injured reserve with a back injury. He could, though, return in time for playoffs. His job right now belongs to wide receiver Tylan Wallace, named AFC Special Teams Player of the Week after his 76-yard walk-off punt return on Sunday. Reporting in Owings Mills, I'm Morgan Adsett for Sports Unlimited.
A heated debate last night surrounding amendments that would weaken the Baltimore County Inspector General's powers. Coming up next, we speak with Baltimore City's IG about the controversy.
Organized retail crime is a major problem. I'm Janae Bones on Capitol Hill with a look at what's being done to stop it.
Asking you to let the people's watchdog do her job without obstruction and interference.
Do you consider yourself a very nice Inspector General, or competent and do a great job?
I do my job.
A heated debate last night over changes to the Baltimore County Inspector General's office, with Council Chair Julian Jones defending a series of amendments that could weaken the IG's powers.
These amendments were tacked onto a bill designed to reform the IG's office at the request of a special commission.
These amendments are a slap in the face to the Blue Ribbon Commission.
We talk about sort of like the fox guarding the hen house. And when we get groupthink, we know what we're going to get in terms of response.
Well, we'll find out soon which direction this will go. The council is set to formally vote on the amendments next week.
That's right. In the meantime, tonight we are joined by Baltimore City Inspector General Isabel Cumming, one of the amendment's most vocal critics. Also very important to note, you are also the Vice President of the Inspectors General. It's a national organization that governs and trains IGs. Ms. Cumming, thank you for coming in. Just to start, what were your main takeaways from last night's hearing? I think maybe the comment that we just heard from Council Chair Jones was very strange to be asked.
I have never been asked if I am a very nice Inspector General. It kind of brought me back to 1984. I'm a very competent Inspector General, but nice is not really the thing you think of when you think of Inspector General, nor should that be really an issue in this. So there were a lot of matters that were a little bit bizarre in the entire thing, a lot of misinformation, given mostly by Chairman Jones.
Ms. Cumming, Council Chair Jones told our Rebecca Pryor that other council members helped him form these amendments, but he wouldn't specify who. He also didn't reveal who when he was asked last night. Why do you think he's hesitant to answer that question? Do you have any guesses about that?
Well, from looking at the expressions of the council people yesterday, it looked like not a single one of them joined him on admitting that they were part of that. Most likely, looking at the amendments, it was probably, looks like it was Chairman Jones' ideals. He is one of the only ones that has ever been investigated, not once, but twice by the Inspector General. So it all appeared to be a bit self-serving. And some of the things that he suggested, such as not an advisory board, which is what we have in the city. What he is suggesting is an oversight board, a group that would actually know what investigations an Inspector General would have ahead of time, a group that would be able to edit and actually suggest changes to the Inspector General. As a national officer, I can tell you this is unheard of, unprecedented, and immediately would cause Baltimore County to fail a peer review by the Office of the Inspector General.
As we mentioned, the council going to vote on these amendments next week. If passed, how does that affect Baltimore County and its government?
I don't believe that these will pass. Several of the councilmen said during the meeting that they had received hundreds and hundreds of calls from constituents. And for that, I know Inspector General Madigan is grateful, and I believe that the best thing that the people of Baltimore County can do is continue to keep up the push. It's just till Monday to show that this type of attack on the public's watchdog, I mean, the public spent $100,000 getting a blue ribbon commission of judges, expert people on this, as well as interviewing people from all of the United States to come up with 100-page recommendations, of which Council Chairman Jones has completely ignored. I mean, this was actually a bizarre experience.
All right, Isabel Cumming, Baltimore City's Inspector General, Vice President of the Inspectors General Commission as well, an organization, national organization. We will see what happens next week and hopefully talk to you more about it. Thank you for coming in and talking to us tonight.
Thank you.
And let's take a closer look at the timeline leading up to this debate. The Baltimore County Inspector General's office formed in 2020. The 7-member Blue Ribbon Commission on Ethics and Accountability was created in 2021. The commission submitted its final report this February, listing 20 recommendations to help the Inspector General's office operate more efficiently. Several of those recommendations were put into a bill, including the need for clear expectations regarding the IG's authority. But several last-minute amendments forced the council to delay a vote last Tuesday. Council Chair Julian Jones has defended the amendments, saying the Inspector General should have an advisory board consisting of mostly county officials. Inspector General Kelly Madigan pushed back on that, saying that would be a conflict of interest. Jones walked back part of his stance, now proposing a board of mostly private citizens with one county official from the Ethics Commission. Madigan told Rebecca Pryor, our reporter, that's still not acceptable to her.
Frankly, Ms. Pryor, it's not about what I think. It's about what all of the other subject matter experts and other inspector generals testified to before the Blue Ribbon Commission. That is not a best practice, and the commission recognized that, and that's why they didn't propose it.
Fox 45 News has been following this debate ever since the very beginning. For all of our reporting, including our interviews with Jones and Madigan, head to our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Maryland's newest school report card is out, and the news not good for three of the highest performing school systems in the area.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, Carroll, Howard, and Anne Arundel County schools saw steep drop-offs in the number of five-star schools.
The state's annual school report card measures school performance based on a number of factors, including chronic absenteeism, test scores, and graduation rates. Based off those metrics and more, each school receives a star rating, from a low of 1 star to a high of 5 stars. Baltimore City was the only district in the state to see the number of 5-star schools increase. It went from 1 to 2, Baltimore Polytechnic Institute and the School for the Arts. All other districts in our area saw a drop in the number of 5-star schools this year. Baltimore County had the most in our region with 19 5-star schools. But look at this. Last year, Carroll County had 12 5-star schools. This year, it's down to 1. Howard County had 28 5-star schools. Now, it's down to 12. Anne Arundel County saw an even bigger drop. Last year, Anne Arundel County also had 28 5-star schools. And this year, it's down to just 9. Coming up tonight on Fox 45 News at 10, what the Maryland State Department of Education says could be to blame for the drop in high-performing schools. We'll also tell you what districts in our area had the most 1-star schools, the lowest possible score. I'm Chris Papst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Retailers across the country have lost billions of dollars this year because of organized retail crime. The issue becoming so widespread, it prompted a House Homeland Security hearing this week. National correspondent Janae Bowens has a closer look at the troubling trend.
Scenes like these have become commonplace in our nation's suburbs and cities.
Detergent, lotion, a lot of products are being used and sold. You can talk about human trafficking, you can talk about terrorism. That money definitely goes elsewhere.
Sacramento County Sheriff Jim Cooper is doing what he can to stop organized retail crime, but he says he needs help.
There's a lot of international folks involved in this.
The problem was a focus on Tuesday at a House Homeland Security hearing.
Do you think having maybe a billionaire like George Soros spending $40 million of his own money, supporting leftist prosecutors and DAs who are soft on crime might have something to do with it?
Republicans blame Democrat policies on crime and the border for the issue, but not all witnesses agreed.
Any trends there?
But there was shared disappointment when it came to the safety concerns these criminals pose, some store workers even losing their lives.
You will sense the fear and the trauma and how much impact this has on human beings.
Today, we're locking up valuable product, employing off-duty police and security officers, and even putting police cars on the front aprons of our stores.
The latest retail security survey shows in 2022, retailers lost over $112 billion. That's up from $93.9 billion in 2021. Organized retail crime is partly to blame.
And when stores start closing due to the effects of ORC, we see loss of jobs, we see loss of state and local sales tax generated, and loss of property tax generated. And of course, it's a blight on the community.
A bipartisan group of lawmakers and retail industry leaders are pushing for the passage of the Combating Organized Retail Crime Act. It would establish coordination between several agencies to stop this wide-scale theft. In Washington, I'm Janae Bowens.
Another concern for shoppers is holiday scams. During November and December last year, almost 12,000 victims reported losing more than $73 million because of scams. On Fox 45 Morning News, we spoke with an FBI agent about steps you can take to prevent becoming a victim.
When online shopping, you certainly want to stick with trusted, well-known sites. If you're shopping and you see, a product that's out of stock everywhere else and they have it at this one site that you've never used, that's a red flag.